All right, thank you all for joining us for the January version of the advisory council meeting. I know we had one in just in December, but we kind of wanted to have one in January because there were a couple of important things that happened and some progress that we made that we wanted to kind of communicate to the council and kind of set the start off the year with. So with that being said, we'll go over the agenda here real fast. So the usual kind of council administration, introductions and attendance. There's only one real update this year for this meeting, and that's just the to kind of announce the annual report. I'll talk about that, and then to talk a little bit about the imagery acquisition and the associated working group, and then some updates on some of our kind of big activities that we've been working on lately. So before we get started, let's kind of run through in this order for attendance, and we'll just make sure that everybody's here. So I'm Alfredo Herrera and, with OPM.
Call also OPM. I didn't see Stu.
Yeah, I don't think he can make it today.
Okay.
Liz, I believe you're up next.
Liz Congo, Connecticut DOT.
Dan Chaya, DESPP.
Gary Archambault, DPH.
Eric Snowden, Capital Region Council of Governments.
Doesn't look like we have Mark. Do we have John Guskoski?
Is anyone else
I don't
hearing
see
all that
John.
feedback?
Yes, there's background from somebody, possibly Eric
Okay.
Snowden. Sorry. There we go.
I think it's actually Dan. I was muted, so.
Oh, okay. It showed up as you on mine. I think that's right.
All right. So no, I guess Tracy's up next.
Hi, I'm Tracy from the town of East Hartford.
Hi, Emily Wilson, Yukon.
Pete St. Perry, United Illuminating.
Megan McGaffin, SLR.
Excellent. It looks like we have just enough to have a vote on the parcel drafting guidelines. So that's good information for later. I don't have any active council administration, although we may have one kind of administrative thing come up as part of the housing stuff if there's enough discussion and deem it necessary. So we'll go from there on that. With that said, I'm going to pass it off to Ashley to talk about the parcel drafting guidelines that we've been working on for quite a while now.
Good afternoon, everyone. Finally, the parcel guidelines are here. I just want to thank, well, first of all, the GIS office has worked hard on this. I want to thank Leah and Sarah and Alfredo, obviously, for all the work and, all the various revisions that we had to do internally. But also, I wanted to take the time to thank the original members of the parcel drafting working group that are here. And if I miss someone, please just let me know and I'll add it. I wasn't here before at that time, but and I wanted to include also Carl, who is not longer with the GIS office and is right now at the New York City Department of Youth and Community Development as well. So a little bit of an update as well where Carl is right now. So next slide. Do I have control? No. I think I can do. Okay. So as I mentioned before in the emails, we've done a couple of different changes to this document from the original draft that we received from the working group. And one of the main things is that we updated the title to reflect that guidance-based approach. And we focus mostly the improvements on restructuring and clarifying some of the language, rearranging and reformatting some information, and trying to make updating this language to allow these recommendations to surface at the top of each section and to be clear to whoever is reading it. Understanding that the audience might have changed, in the past years, with, different people or practitioners, parcel creators and maintainers that come from different points. It might be entry level, it might be for the more advanced readers. So I wanted to sort of encompass that in the language and how we derive each recommendation, at the end of each section, whatever there are ones. We wanted to sort of work in consistency and give the sections clarity. So we reorganized a little bit of the contents to have this like major areas or topics within the document. One, the stakeholders and collaboration. I think this one is very important, something that we have been discussing a lot through different conversations, through the parcel and KMA grants improvement, for example, where we understand that some of the fields that we ask for in the standardization, well, is not the assessor's responsibility to maintain them somehow, sometimes. And those kind of things that need to be described there, but there, and sort of underlining the importance of collaboration on this effort. And then understanding land records, again, like I said, we're thinking about that person that has never heard about parcels and now just got a position as a GIS analyst at a town, and they said, well, you're going to work with parcels. And a resource that could be also used in, an education component as well, outside of also working. There's also then after followed. So in there in the line records, like I said, components, that integration, the cardinality, just testing some of the discussion and cardinality. And then we move into source data types. The contexts that were described by the working group, but I just want to summarize it, and you probably looked at it too. I'm going to go a little faster on that. And then the parcel creation and maintenance, that's where the most of the bulk of the effort in restructuring and understanding what are we trying to say when we're doing parcel modification and when you create a parcel, right? And what are the things that, a creator, maintainer should take care when doing updates to such an important data set. And at the end, we do some feature level metadata recommendations and an attribute schema. This is not something that is new. These standard fields, we've seen it already from the parcel collection that we carry every year. And we track this adherence from each collection, which I cannot remember the numbers right now, but this is something that, we do have been seeing across the board with the vendors. So this is the context in general, the overview of the document, please. Next slide. The content has been reviewed by different external feedback. We have somebody, and the names are in the document. We have people from S3 look and review this, and we did even several workshops together, or talks on the phone. Just to go over several sections and understand and add clarity. We also share with someone at Regrid, which is a company, for those that don't know, it's a property data and location intelligence company. And in their message back, they just give us a little kudos, and I thought it was worth sharing here because it's not only, an effort, like I said, of GIS office, OPN, DABA, it's a larger effort from all the people that have contributed one way or another. And I even, had conversations on one-on-one to understand this topic a little more clearly. We also have KK Yanitsa from New York GIS program from Office and the Parcels and Land Records Program Manager. And also we have a parcel and CAMA. I just want to remind everybody that we have a parcel and CAMA collection working group with assessors. We have vendors, regional GIS managers, and state agency representatives. More people are always welcome. But they did this document was shared with them in tandem, and so we also received feedback and had time to discuss it in our meeting a week ago. Next, please. This is a lot. I shared it with you before this morning, saying that there were changes to two sections of 4.2, 4.5. This concerns the use of parcel fabric. Mark Hoover, who's a member of the council, did say that this was not aligned with the original intent of the working group. And I did see that we missed that sentence, clarifying a little bit more on parcel fabric. And this was mostly because we initially were thinking that this recommendation was a good one, and we highlighted as one, given that, parcel management, parcel fabric allows to do some parcel management and, given like a multi-user edit environment and, also, all these kind of things that we all know. But, we wanted to clarify that there's issues with applying this to Connecticut. And that's the language that is here highlighted in bold because of the irregular parcel geometries, and the lack of survey control points that could support a robust fabric adjustment. Wherever it's feasible, then, further recommendations explore. And I put a discussion there, like a footnote where to see meets and bounds if you want to understand more about the complex geometries and the key concepts, and also in the reference resources as well. And in the data formats, the parcel parcel fabric was recommended. That was toned down a little bit, and I also added another footnote there, clarifying that there's could be challenges with using parcel fabric. But that's the update on that. So I just didn't want the council to miss this because this is, for transparency, this will be updated in that. Another section that I think I clarified that I updated was 4.4. It describes municipal boundaries, and when you find indiscrepancies between the parcel and a parcel boundary and what to do about it. So that update should have been included with the latest version, but this is something that you probably didn't have the chance to see. So I wanted to have it here. And I think that's all my part in terms of the discussion. I welcome any feedback. I think Alfredo's going to mention something else. But I do look forward for sort of releasing this to the public, as has been a long time coming. And I think the improvements are now have done a great job in describing the intentions of this guidance and specifications.
Thank you, Ashley. So, yeah, I think with that, I really kind of want to ask anybody on the council to kind of, assuming you've all kind of reviewed it and read it, do you have any questions, comments that you would like to voice on this forum in terms of that? And then, if no one has any objections, then I would entertain a motion to kind of vote on it to accept and adopt these as a council. Meg, go ahead.
Hey, yeah, I was giving it, I've been, part of this for a bit now, but I was giving it, a detailed read, and there's just some edits and corrections I'd like to go over, maybe with Ashley or with the parcel standards working group. There's just I just have some notes. Nothing fundamental that changes the content of the document, but just some clarifying comments and suggestions. So I don't know if that, it doesn't need to hold up the adoption of this, just it would just, you know, continuing to be a working document, I guess.
Well, I think that's part of the intent of this document. It is for it to be kind of a living document that does get kind of, looked at and revised periodically. We can do kind of like kind of some, as long as they don't significantly change the content. What we would do is, we can make those kinds of edits, but if there is something that might change the context or the way that something in the document is perceived, we may kind of hold that until we revise it. And I think we would like to revise this on an annual basis.
I would say like, you know, and I've been giving it a close read, you know, this morning. I would say probably like the only real, two significant things would maybe being updating uh, the intro to surveys on page 10, or the definition of surveys on page 10, and then other things are kind of, and then the discussion of a land record in 2.1. The only, you know, I think substantively, in terms of 2.1, addressing the fact that a land record begins with the city clerk receiving, you know, the deed and the mortgage, that then goes on to the assessor and then goes on to the parcel drafter. Substantively, that's, you know, the only like thing of significance I've seen yet, and I don't necessarily think that it doesn't derail, you know, the process or the quality of the document. Not at all. This is very good. But I would just want to include that the land record, rather than consisting of two key components, three really, because it begins with the deed that gets filed with the clerk.
That's important information. Yeah. Yeah, I agree. Those are minor. I'll leave it up
Yeah.
to the council. If you feel comfortable moving forward, even despite these minor edits that would be to come, we can move forward. If you would like to wait and review these after we make these edits, then we can push this to the April meeting and have the vote then. It's up to you all. Eric?
Yeah, thanks. I think I would recommend getting this approved today. Due to the fact that I think a lot of people are waiting on it concerning all the big parcel projects going on right now. That's just my 2 cents. And if, a version 0.01 or 2 needs to
Yeah,
be
I
done,
agree.
then that's,
Yeah.
or 0.1, I think that's fine. I mean, I know the consultants
Yeah.
would, if any consultants were on this call, they would also say the same thing.
Before Scott, Liz, you were saying something?
No, I was just gonna say I agree. I think the way it stands right now is in a good spot, especially if we're planning on updating it
Yeah.
annually-ish. That
Scott, go ahead.
Two comments on it. One, again, like I think Ashley had done a few minutes ago, going through like there's a working group that's been through this and put comments in, and I think just making sure like that process works. This is the output of that, and so if the council approves it today, that's a nice sort of way of marking like that's the end of one cycle in that step in that sort of ongoing cycle, and we'll go back to the group for future revisions in the long run. But we have the working groups develop these. It will never be perfect. Like Alfredo said, it's always going to be a work in progress. There'll be something to change in it. If I think, Meg, what I understood from yours, they're not huge changes, but it's probably a fair number of like words that would be in the edit. The other thing people could do is look at approving it as amended with the language from Meg, but my sense was that might be a little more than is easy to do in the meeting.
Yeah, no, I agree with you, Scott. I don't
Yeah.
want to hold up the adoption of the document. Just address the fact that it should just, just be a living document. I would be fine with accepting it as is, and then immediately, contact Emily or anybody, Ashley, tomorrow, to say like, oh, okay, so here's some things. I think And I think honestly demonstrating that it's a living document by accepting it and then immediately adjusting it, I think kind of gives credibility to the effort. Like perfection is the enemy of good, and the purpose of this document is to guide and instruct, which it does. So I don't think that there's anything substantively wrong with it. I just want to address the fact that, at this point today, this close read, there's like, oh, there's some things I've caught, but that's the evolution of, these processes. So,
Yeah.
yeah, so I have no objection to letting it, go forward at all.
Okay. So on that note, would you entertain a motion to vote on this document and approve it as the council?
I would, yeah, I'll throw that motion out there, sure.
Do we have a second?
I'll second it, Eric Snowden.
Okay. Instead of kind of taking roll call, I guess what we'll do is everyone that in approval say yay.
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 Any objections? Any abstentions? All right, motion carries. The document is approved, and we have parcel drafting guidelines. We will work with Meg to make those kind of minor edits, and then we will get it all posted to the our website and make sure that it can be disseminated out from there. If you already have a copy of it and you care to share share it with someone, you can share it with anyone you like. Just be advised that it will be updated in kind of some minor capacities based on the feedback that we get from Meg and anyone else that has some thoughts or comments on it. We're more than happy to hear those and make adjustments. But once that happens, we're probably going to put the document down for a hot minute because Ashley has been working on it very, very hard for the better part of a year, if not longer, almost two since she started. So I think it's time to give the document a little bit of a rest and then kind of let it breathe, and then we can revisit it, kind of reactivate a new version of the working group sometime down the line, maybe next year, and kind of revisit the document, make sure that we still agree. And, if there's nothing to say, then there's nothing to say. And we kind of, say, okay, cool. So thank you for all of that. We will continue with our previously scheduled programming here and go on to some of the a couple of updates, the different things that the GIS office has been doing and that some of the working groups. First and foremost, I do want to say we did produce the 2025 annual report of the GIS office activities and coordination that we have to submit to the Planning and Development Committee of the legislature. We did get that done in December, sent out the door. It's posted to our website, so feel free to kind of peruse through that. I believe it's like 19 pages of wonderful things that we did all of last year. It's a document that keeps getting slightly longer every year because we get up to a lot on an annual basis. So I just wanted to make sure that you are all aware that this is out and this is up and published. Haven't gotten too much feedback, but I'm not sure how many people have actually read it yet. But there's a lot of good information there on the things that we've done throughout the year. So if you're worried that you missed anything, check it out. And then secondly is the imagery acquisition and the working group. So this is also one of the initial working groups that we created in this council on the very, very first meeting. So a quick note is on the 2026 collection, we are on schedule. All of the plans are set and we are literally just waiting for weather. Basically waiting for the long angle, shadow angles and sun angles to kind of produce a period of time that is long enough to justify flying. And obviously with all the snow on the ground, we can't take pictures. So we're also waiting for the snow to melt. So, but apart from that, we are all set there. We have gotten final delivery of the impervious cover data. They did make some additional corrections. based on some of the back and forth that I've been seeing between Ecopia and Dewberry, there may be one more minor adjustment to that data set on the railways data set in particular. But once we get the final bit of metadata and documentation from Ecopia, we will be publishing that data set and making it available. But again, as with everything, if you need an advanced copy or you need it right now because you're doing something, just let us know and we'll provide that as we have it. But now looking forward is, this is the second of the 2 flights that we kind of bought and paid for with the ARPA allocation that we have. And so I think I had a conversation with Eric Snowden the other day about reconstituting and reactivating the kind of the acquisition group that we use to kind of secure this flight to begin with. And we need to start having discussions about what comes next. How do we get the next flight for imagery, for elevation, for all of those things? I think it's safe to say that this last program set of flights has been successful, and people are very happy with the products that we've been able to secure. So, but obviously someone's got to pay for it. So we have to figure out, what are the funding opportunities? How, what kind of collaboration opportunities are there? How are we going to, what lessons do we want to take from the current flight program and move that forward? So if you were on the last working group for this, you're more than welcome to join again. If you have an interest in kind of seeing and shaping how this goes moving forward, please reach out to me and Eric, and we will kind of get you on board and start having discussions here soon, because we really do need to figure out what comes next. Because if we are going to keep a similar cadence of flights every 3 years, and the next one would be 2029. And, I got a bit of a heart attack when I was talking to USGS and they were talking about a 2029 flight, as a matter of fact. And I was all like, don't say that, because we're not ready for that yet. So I think part of it is to, kind of start getting our head in the game and figure out what comes next. Meg, go ahead.
Hi, thanks. I just wanted to just point out that when we, it's all a blur, but when we were working with Christy McVehee and Norm Needleman setting up the working group to justify having the GIS office set up, one of the things that we collected when we interviewed other state agencies was how they fund their GIS programs and initiatives like this. I don't remember what it was, but whoever, and I know that we had assembled a large document, but then had really, really whittled it down for adoption and passage and explanation of our activities. But in that original document, and I don't know if Thad or if it's Emily who was keeping all of that, extensive report, but we did collect and describe how other states in the region were doing it. I don't know where that is though, but somebody has it.
Yes, we do have all that, Meg, and I think Alfredo
Okay.
does have access to it.
Okay. It's
In a
been
shared
years
drive, but
though.
it has been. And I think also the activity of the GIS office with NISJIC and those states and the relationships
Yeah.
that have been built, Alfredo may know more than we, and things have
Yeah.
changed, but we can definitely start with that information and perhaps ask those states again if
Yeah,
there's.
we put it in a table. I think we I think we had some sort of like very good summary of how things are funded in the different states.
Yeah, we
Which at
definitely did
least,
have that.
yeah,
We do have
yeah.
that.
So I would just say that would just be at least a reference point to look back on. But I mean, we're talking 2021, 2020. I don't know what
Yeah.
year we did that, but time flies when you're having fun.
Absolutely. Yeah. So one thing I will say,
It was definitely COVID.
Yeah. And kind of to Emily's point, there is a lot that we've learned about this topic from NISJIC in particular, and being exposed to our kind of, counterpart states. and how they do things, and also the exposure to our federal partners in that through that organization as well has also helped tremendously. Some of the conversations that I've had with USGS open up some interesting opportunities for funding that going forward, and with still allowing for a lot of flexibility on our end, like we kind of like to have with the flights. So I think there's a lot of room for possibilities here. There's a lot of both interagency, local, regional kind of programs. For example, like the 3DHP stuff that we did was very, very successful, and we did that in partnership with our fellow states. I know we tried to do that in 2019 with the imagery, and it didn't go so great, but our efforts this past year, the last couple of years on the 3DHP side can prove that it is possible to kind of do this collaboratively. Suffice to say that I this is like a conversation I would really like to kind of encourage the working group to have. We're going to start kind of trying to plan a meeting here very soon so that we can kind of start the conversation and kind of keep the ball rolling. Anybody else have any questions or comments on this topic? Yeah, Eric.
Just that in your talking with NISJIC, have any other states been able to harness the needs of the utility community to assist with any of
Sporadically.
that? I know that we've always talked about it, and I don't think it's ever really panned out.
Yeah, I would say that is sporadic in kind of nature. Some are able to do it and some aren't. Some are even able to go in really weird directions. Like, for example, Arizona was able to secure funding from Coca-Cola or PepsiCo to help fund their elevation data because they really want to understand, flooding and water flows and all of that kind of stuff. So they had a vested interest in kind of developing that data with the state. So they were able to get, convince software manufacturers to help pay for it. So I think, that's the kind of out of the box thinking I'm hoping that we can kind of think about is like what, not I want to say like untapped resources, but like, partners that are not yet in the fold are there out there that could have a vested interest and could be willing to put some skin in the game.
Yeah, and I think that, historically, it's been as simple as they know they're going to get it anyway. The only benefit to them might be that they are able to steer the specs in a certain way or something. But anyway, you all know I'll get way into the weeds with this, so you better go on to the next topic. We can save it for the committee meeting, for the working group.
Go. Sure. Any other comments or questions? All right. Now I will pass it off to Sarah, who's going to start talking about the work that we're doing on the housing bill.
Yeah, hi everyone. We just wanted to give an update on what we've been working on the housing bill, because it's moving pretty quickly. So like we talked about last month, Public Act 25-1, which was previously House Bill 8002, it's been signed into law. And the act covers a lot of different things, but the piece that we're involved with requires all municipalities to develop housing growth plans and also annual progress reports. So that's going to be starting in 2028 and 2029. They're going to be submitting those. So a lot of the work around this whole act is still in development and decisions are still being made. But we just wanted to give you an update on where we're at with our portion and walk through the pieces that we are actively developing. And we'll get to more details in a minute, but at a high level, just as a reminder, the bill calls for mapping standards to be mapping standards for the submitted reports which are going to be coming soon since they're due March 1st. And then the bill also specifically calls out the GIS office to provide statewide data tools that the municipalities can use to determine developable land. So right now we're in the middle of identifying data sets and developing tools that the towns can use while they're creating the housing growth plans and identifying their developable land inventories. And the main objective from GIS office is really to support the municipalities and COGS while they're going through this process and identifying the lands and creating these housing growth plans. Can we go to the next slide? So what we don't want to do is identify the developable lands at a statewide level. We don't have the local insight or data that would make sense for all the communities. So ultimately, the determination of what is developable should be staying with the towns and the communities, because different communities are going to value different things. An urban area, for example, is going to have a very different priority than a town that has a strong farming presence. So we can't really come in with a statewide sweep and tell people what areas are developable and not. So because of that, we're gonna avoid a kitchen sink tool. So that would be something that combines and analyzes all these data sets all at once into one big statewide map. And that wouldn't work well because these decisions really need to be made on a more granular local level. And transparency is also really important in this whole process. All of these tools and data that we're providing are going to be public and reviewable by anyone who is interested and wants to take a deeper dive into all the information. And then lastly, the statutory deadline for the data tools is July 1st, which is going to be coming up quickly. And by then we'll have finished products and data and tools available, but this is not really a one and done effort, and we're going to continue to grow the tools and refine the work through at least the end of the year. So that means additional data sets that maybe are developed or identified or updated throughout the year. Different scenarios and new maps will be added as we identify needs for them. So it will be functional by July 1st, but we will continue to grow it and add onto it the rest of the year. Here we go, next slide. So this first part that's due March 1st is on our end is the mapping standards. So those are going to be integrated with some other reporting guidance that's being developed by the Office of Responsible Growth at OPM. So this is going to be kind of mixed in with their requirements. And right now we're just working on defining what those mapping standards are going to look like based on what maps are going to actually be required in these reports. And the main goal is to have consistency with the maps and clarity and make sure that the reports are comparable across municipalities. Go to the next slide. And then the next part is our data tools that we've been talking about. So again, which are due in July 1st. So to do this, we decided to stand up a hub site. So it's going to be a general GIS housing data hub site for Connecticut. But a big part of it is going to be all the information for this bill. We go to the next slide. So this is the general structure of the hub site. It's going to have a data library that houses all the spatial data that's relative to the housing projects we've worked on. And it's going to include lots of other resources like the housing dashboard that you've all seen multiple times, housing program studies, links to other external resources relative to housing. So we kind of want this to be a overarching general housing, GIS housing resource. But a big part of this is going to be the PA 25-1 section. So we're going to have a collection of data in the data library that is specifically for the data that's going to be used in the developable land analyses, our statewide data sets that we have. And then we're also going to be including high-level map viewers that are going to be have like specific themes, and we'll include scenario-based walkthroughs for GIS analyses based on a few different types of scenarios. Let me go to the next slide. So the data inventory is going to include a lot of different data sets, and these are all the statewide data sets that we're going to be able to have access to. So these are going to be things like built environment, buildings, parcels, different natural resources data sets, the soils, farm data, hydrography, different natural hazards and climate risk data that we can get up on here, and any other data that's relevant to if a town needs to decide if this parcel is developable or not, what information are they going to need to put into that analysis? So we're trying to collect all the statewide data sets that we have available and put them all into this one bucket so that it's easy to access. But it's not going to include local data sets. We don't have access to them. So things like water service and sewers and deed restrictions, those are all on a very local level that we just don't have access to. So we can't include those here, which is it's a big reason why we can't do a statewide developable land analysis, because we can't take into consideration a lot of that data. And then the map viewers are going to be high-level topical map viewers. They're each going to be focused on a very specific theme. So they'll only include a few data layers, some curated layers, be very simple, no analysis, just have layers stacked on top of each other. So a policymaker can open up the map and get an understanding of what the area looks like, and they're able to develop talking points on the issue based on this. And they're also going to be obviously completely public, so anyone can take a look and see what their local area is looking like. And then beyond the map viewers, we are developing these scenario-based analyses. So those are mainly going to be focused on urban, suburban, and rural areas. So those are going to be our three main scenarios right now. And those are going to go into depth and show what data should be considered and how the data sets might be weighted differently depending on these different contexts, and what types of analyses can be done to identify the developable land in the different contexts. So the main goal with these is to give like municipal GIS staff or contractors or whoever's doing these analyses some guidance and a starting point for when they begin the analyses for the developable land that are going to have to go into the housing growth plans. So we'd be interested in knowing if anyone has thoughts or suggestions or advice on the data sets we're including or the context we're using, and in particular the map viewers. We'd love feedback on themes that would be most useful, or if you have any thoughts on how to make these you know, useful for what they're intended for.
One thing on the viewers themselves, it's kind of a small thing, but just making sure they have a widget for people to be able to add their own data if they're trying to do that, and maybe providing some nice map templates if they're trying to print from there.
Yep, totally. Meg, hands up.
Yeah, hi. I had been thinking about this, and to tie in maybe back to the parcel standards, I think that the OPM should the GIS office should work on figuring out some sort of land use classification, some sort of tag or something where either in CAMA or the GIS professionals or the COGS or something can have a standardized attribute that identifies the developability of these parcels so that it can be tracked over time. Land use classification codes from CAMA, as you know, you all know, are widely variable. But if there was some sort of just standard set of codes or something that the committee or the council could recommend, I think it would go a long way in helping to facilitate aggregation of the data in the long term.
It's an interesting thought. Uh, I, that would take a lot of coordination with the assessors, just like off the top of my head. I think, because obviously they're kind of like the owners of the data set. It's not.
Yep.
I would argue it's not impossible to make this happen. I think it would just take a fair amount of education on with a whole lot of different parties. We can definitely investigate that avenue as part of maybe a requirement for the developable properties as they get, because they have to tell us what the developable properties
Yeah.
are. And by us, I mean OPM. Creating a flag in the CAMA by property could be a mechanism of doing that, but we would have to talk through the logistics with a whole lot of people to see if that's practical or feasible or
Yeah,
acceptable for those things.
even if it doesn't happen at the local level, if it doesn't happen like necessarily in the CAMA data, at the COG level, or at least like developed, recommendations, like if you're and obviously there's going to be a lot of things that come up and out of the research that these towns do in terms of classifying and identifying the properties that are developable. The inverse option would be perhaps to clarify or codify what is definitively protected in a different way, right? Rather than having somebody come up with something new for something new, maybe even just issue clearer guidance on how to say protect or how to identify PA 490 land or something like that. Like even just as simple as it's PA 490, not PA 490 or P.A. Whatever. And even if it's guidance rather than dictation, that might be a good way to begin. But just knowing that as a person who's done a lot of land use mapping, if everybody is left up to their own devices, they'll do what suits best for them. But if you put at least some guide rails or some fences or something that says, hey, it would be great, if you could follow this sort of convention at the local level so that we can aggregate it upward and upward, and over time. I definitely wouldn't suggest trying to get all 169 assessors to all change what they're doing, but at least be mindful and say, you can put, because they do put additions and suffixes, in their data all the time.
Yeah.
But yeah, just to be, because you're gonna want to see change over time, and they're gonna want to be able to call those parcels up internally or externally, as needed.
Sure.
Um,
Nope,
so
that
that
makes
would
sense. Yeah, I agree. I think that would be a nice to have. I would say it's not impossible, but I think it would take a fair amount of coordination to make it viable. So thank you
Well,
for that.
that's why we have you. That's why
right.
I'm here. So thanks.
That's why. Yep, absolutely. Thad, you had a question or comment.
Thanks for recognizing me, Alfredo. So just as a note to that, speaking of developable properties, the Connecticut Municipal Development Authority, the CMDA, is currently undergoing a study, from what I've heard, looking at from a local level developable property within towns, and that is a project that is currently undergoing across the entire state. So that data that we're speaking about in some capacity may be in the process of being developed. So, but that's the CMDA project that's going on right now.
Okay.
I was under the impression that was confined to transit-oriented development areas.
It is, but it's I mean, it's a start, right? It's better
Yeah.
than currently having nothing whatsoever. But yes, you're absolutely correct.
Ashley, go ahead.
I just wanted to add, because there's been mentioning of the state use and land use code, and through the parcel and chemical grants, I want to remind everybody that we've had these conversations, and some vendors are working harder than other ones in sort of aligning and standardizing those codes that we receive and the state use descriptions that we see in the CAMA. Though it's minimal, things like had to do with data wrangling and cleaning, like cleaning dashes and all that, are minimal. That's the least for us and our concerns, that we could tackle that issue easily with, data cleaning pipes. Our issue is understanding clearly what is said when they say, open space and other kind of
Yeah.
state just descriptions that, this conversation and Alfredo just had it literally this week, that, and it's worse for zoning, obviously, right? Because we have to understand what residential encompasses. But I'm just saying that that we have been working hard in this and the completeness size of the CAMA through the grants. It has been hard to translate this effort from the council of governments, who are the receivers of these grants, to the towards the municipalities. Then the municipalities cannot even be passed through to the vendors. So but we've worked our hardest to get out the message. We presented in June last year to the assessors, and this was one of the topics that was brought up even before we pull up the slide about state use and the codes, and how to simplify them and follow the abstract coding system that is published by OPM. So there has been a lot of discussion on this that I've never heard before. The Green Bank has communicated to me somehow they use it for identifying properties. So many uses that I've shared with the stakeholders that I hope that for the next CAMA, CAMA and parcel collection, you will see some improvements on that for sure.
That's awesome. Yeah, it certainly is a big effort. There's it's a lot of work, and I don't know if you need another stakeholder added to the group, but like CCAPA would also be a stakeholder in this as well, because they're the ones that kind of translate from the planning side over to the assessor side, what kind of needs to be thought of. And APA in general, they have sorted a lot of this out, in terms of their own definitions and symbology and recommendations. So that might help. I don't know. But we have a rare opportunity here to do something right from the beginning, and so I just want to, good luck.
Thank you. We're gonna need
Thank
it.
you, Meg.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's some interesting big ideas going on in what we're doing with the with our work on the housing bill, and I think a lot of it is going to be kind of varying degrees of needed and innovative. But I think we're just hoping to do at the very minimum incremental improvements so that all of this, people can just make better decisions and have the data more readily available and easier to use. Because, it's great that it might be there, but if you have to work real hard to make sense of it, then it's not there. Yeah, from that perspective, yeah, I totally agree. We got to keep pushing and making progress on this. Any more comments or questions on this particular topic? All right, we're going to switch gears to water and 3DHP. I just want to give a quick update. So we've begun we've been talking to USGS, and we've been and we have like a tentative scope of work for what the work is going to be like. We've been working with some internal working groups, various number of internal working groups, trying to determine what enhancements we would like to purchase in addition to just the foundational data. So as you see some of it here listed, you see things like automated bankful and uh, stream contours, I think is what it's called, because they got lumped together for some reason. Stream profiles, that's the word. We have wetlands classification from the imagery, Esri stormwater schema integration, stormwater integration pilot for at least one HUC. Still haven't figured out quite where that's going to be, although we anticipate it's likely going to be in most likely in WestCog, just because that's the place where there's the most data availability. Land cover update, that's a separate effort. We're not necessarily going to do that through the 3DHP, but base capture specs work. So we're going to ask for a smaller level of minimum mapping units. So like a 0.1 acre ponds, 15-foot streams to kind of capture more area. So these are some of the things that we're interested in. The watershed boundary delineation updates is one that we are leaving off the tables intentionally. It does not make sense for us to purchase this separately because USGS fully intends to do this work regardless of whether we buy it from a vendor or not. They are going to produce the same areas over again. And if, say, for example, the areas that our vendor produces don't agree with what USGS comes up with, then the USGS data will kind of override whatever we developed, and then it kind of becomes a bit of a waste of money. So from that perspective, even though it is an important data set, we are going to not do that one just because we know USGS fully intends to do it on their own. So like I said, we are working on the add-on products. Once we kind of have that settled, we'll kind of have a follow-up conversation, in particular for us with Mass and Rhode Island, to see if they are in agreement and are also interested in those. So that way we understand if we're paying for that whole HUC or if we're just paying for our half of the line. So from that perspective, there's some still further conversations to happen, but then once we go there and we have a total number, then we can kind of start moving the ball forward with the bond commission and with USGS to kind of get all of this across the finish line. So that was the biggest update that I wanted to kind of cover with the 3DHP specifically. I'll pause there for any questions or comments or concerns with that particular aspect of it. All right, and then so from here, I will pass it back off to Sarah to talk about some of the more applied implementations of the 3DHP and some of the other work that we're doing around culverts and things.
Yeah, so the 3DHP has overlap with the requirements from PA 2533. So that requires each municipality to submit data on culverts and bridges within their boundaries, and that's due May 2028. So while the 3DHP isn't going to specifically call out bridges and culverts in an inventory, it is going to be supporting this effort by identifying elevation breaching connectors. So those are locations where water flows under roads and other barriers. So those are culverts and similar structures. That's so that the stream network remains connected. So we'll be able to take those features and highlight potential culvert locations so that towns can use that to go identify areas that may potentially have culverts that were previously identified in the data. So hoping that 3DHP, we have this information next summer, so that'll give time for towns to go out and look for these potential culvert locations if they hadn't already identified them. Next slide. So I think you've all seen this flow chart a few times. This is our path for PA 2533. So in terms of where we're at in the process now, we've identified data sets that we have readily available to us right now, and we've started looking at them, and I'll talk about that in a minute. But we're currently working on developing a data schema that we're going to ask the municipalities to use when they submit their culvert and bridge information for that requirement. We're reviewing existing schemas and best practices and things like that. It's important that whatever we develop aligns with data inputs that are required for flood modeling, since flood resiliency is the core focus of this this act. And then in the near future, really soon, we're going to be reaching out to COGS and municipalities to ask them to just send us any culvert and bridge data sets that they currently have, even if they're incomplete or in different formats. We just kind of want to see what the whole environment of this data looks like right now. And then we'll be able to submit a rough cut of this data set as an input for 3DHP development. So they'll be able to use those estimated locations as inputs, and then they'll be able to identify those as areas that have culverts or bridges, and then identify gaps beyond that. Go to the next slide. So we've started to review our available data sets to see what all the data is kind of looking like. We're seeing a lot of variability in how the culvert, this is specifically culverts, but how the culverts are represented in the data. So some the data sets use 1 point, some use lines to show the length of the culvert, some are showing a line that shows the inflow and the outflow of the culvert separately. So there's a lot of variations, and you can see in this picture how some of them do kind of line up, but they're in such different formats that it's a little difficult to tell if everything's lining up. But so developing the schema is going to help us with the submitted data to be able to integrate all the data sets together and standardize the information and be able to look at everything on a big statewide scale. I think this is the last slide that I have. Yeah.
Yep, that is the last slide. So thank you, Sarah. Anybody have any questions on the 3DHP or the culvert and bridge data development? All right, we'll take it as no news is good news. As always, please, if you have any thoughts after the meeting, please just feel free to reach out. Now is a good time for public comment. If anybody, whether you're on the council or not, has any comments, concerns, questions, now's a great time to ask. So I'll give that a minute. Meg?
I don't know if I missed it, but I was just wondering, when are we getting the water layer from the last flight?
So that's part of the 3DHP data. We're in the negotiations process with USGS. It takes about a year to develop once we complete it. So I would anticipate sometime next year is when I think we would get it.
Okay.
Yep, it's still a ways out, but there's a lot of work to do still. So. Liz?
Is there a particular, if we have ideas for layers that we think would be helpful for statewide use. Is that something that, like, do you guys have a place we can put in those suggestions? Or like
Yeah,
one
so
thing we get all the time is schools and fire departments and those kinds of things. And I just feel like a state, I know we have some of that data that you can kind of geocode, but the geocoding is a little sketchy for some of them.
Right.
So I think
Yeah,
that's
so
something
we
that
do
would
have,
be very useful.
agreed. So we do have a forum on both the open data and the geodata portals to kind of submit and nominate data sets. But, you know, as a state, fellow state employee, you can definitely just reach out and kind of communicate
Yeah,
that
if
to
we
us
can just
directly,
reach out.
and we can have those conversations. Scott, anything you want to add on that?
And add two things. One, this is the right forum for it too. This is the advisory council, and the members
Yeah.
of it, which includes you, should advise, you know, here's something we should develop for the state. So this is a perfect place for people to bring those ideas up. The two you flagged, I might get a detail wrong on one of these, but it's also, I think it's just generally like good for people to be thinking about when we're developing a statewide layer. Schools, the state has a database, a list of all the schools through State Department of Ed, and I cannot off the top of my head remember if it's been geocoded or not, but like that's there because the state has to, through State Department of Education, you know where all the schools are based. So like we've got a list of all the schools, and it has address information. Someone could geocode it. Fire departments, I'm pretty sure, unless somebody on this group tells me, are not reported to the state. I don't know if there's something where the list of the location and the names and the identification of local fire departments is reported to some state agency. We have a state fire marshal in Department of Administrative Services, so maybe the state fire marshal gets a list of all fire departments. But just when people are thinking, do we have statewide data on this thing? If we have, for us to have statewide data, it means somebody somewhere, whether it's from the municipality or a school district or whatever, has to have as part of their
It's like a
job to
mandated
report
reporting
that.
thing.
Yeah, I didn't want to say mandated, but it's got to be somebody's job to report that to somebody in the state. And so like fire departments is like, we can all Google and, try and find a list of fire departments online. But if you want the, like, this is the actual authoritative list, it means local fire departments or towns or somebody's got to report that to somebody who has the responsibility to manage that in the state. And I don't off the top of my head, I don't think that there is anybody that does that for fire departments, unless somebody just put it in the chat or is going to correct me. But that's like to me, those are like two good examples. Like we probably don't have a list of fire departments because it's not somebody's job to collect it at the state, and it's not the job of local fire departments to report it to us, which is a function of local control and many other factors in Connecticut. Schools we have, but
yeah, schools, like we just end up geocoding it internally and hosting it on our internal portal if people internally want to use it, but it's just sort of like whenever we think to go in and redo it, we geocode it. So something I feel like a state service that we could reference or something like that would be, I think, really helpful across the board.
Just to comment back on that, Liz, the Department of Homeland Security used to, it's recently been deprecated, but they had the Department of Homeland Security Infrastructure Program where they had collected at the federal level, all sorts of data sets that were good for emergency response. And there was different levels of access. There was open access, which anybody could get to. And then if your jurisdiction was under any sort of declared federal emergency, you could get access to higher level proprietary or licensed data. But from the HCHIP Gold program, the open data access, we have fire departments, police departments, schools. I have, it's an older set of data, but the Connecticut Library Association gave me a list of all the libraries, which we've geocoded. We have all the town halls mapped. And this is just data that we've, derived from public sources. But the HCIP Gold, as far as being, developed from a vetted partner, that there are, you can certainly get copies of that. I could send you the copy that we have from our file because we got it from an open data source like that. That and the HCIP Gold, there was quite a lot. I'm not sure what program is running that now, but it had feature level metadata, which was really nice, which told you, did somebody look at it from an air photo? Was it submitted from somebody else? Has it been corrected? So that is available. So but Alfredo, where on the state geo portal would I submit some data or something like that?
So there is that is a basically conversation with us. I think at the moment,
Okay.
doing something like that would require a conversation with us because we would have to kind of vet and then kind of republish that data in some way. But then we would have to have a way of maintaining it. And I'm sure Scott has many thoughts on this topic.
I have some thoughts. And to Thad's comment, two things then. Thad's comment, so this is a good example. The local regional state office locations, one of the things that OPM does is we maintain an inventory of all state buildings, and then separately a list of all property. But again, it's just a list, it's not geocoded. And so Ashley and an intern in our office are going through the arduous work of geocoding the long tail of those locations now so that it's a better spatial layer. But that's something where somebody's got the responsibility, it happens to be at OPM, to get the list of all state buildings, which is not the same as state offices, but that's what we have, and pull that together. So like that is in progress and hopefully will come out at some point. But the list is there and it's published as non-spatial open data if you want it. Today it's on the OPM website. And again, if folks want to geocode it, you can go through the work to sort of do that. The location information is not great because it comes in from facilities managers who are not directly involved in the activities of the GIS Advisory Council and the GIS office. I will say, in my opinion, that the things that we're posting on the geodata portal and on this is consistent with the open data portal, which is a sort of rest of agency data. It should be something where it's gone through, at minimum, some kind of review through the agencies that are tasked with that responsibility to say, like, okay, this is kind of the right and accurate data. And usually it's data that's actually from that agency. We don't, I will say, for open data, we don't take community contributions of data, although people have them. And there's lots of different lists that people have compiled for different things. We don't take them because of a couple of reasons. It's very difficult to verify the accuracy of that on a sort of broad basis. So we might say, okay, I know and I trust you as a resource for this, but what about the next person in line? It's very difficult to keep those things up to date as they change. And so if you had a list of, like this type of thing that doesn't get reported to the state, like once it changes and we have that posted, what are the sort of consequences of that? So we want people to be able to trust and rely on the information. The trade-off there is then we can only post things that we have some process to validate and make sure that we're relying on. And it is very tough to manage the community contributions in that way. So in particular, we haven't ever had community contributions for data for open data, and I personally would be I'd want to think about like the process for getting that kind of thing for geospatial data. I definitely hear the many things that people want, sort of a spatial version of some kind of data that's out there, a list, but just folks should keep in mind the many things that we don't have as a state because it's not anybody's job to report that to the state. And so that is sort of a policy decision that means we've got blind spots in some areas. The discussions Sarah had on housing earlier, there's a lot of things that we don't have that would inform housing decisions. They're just not reported to the state.
Yep, thank you. Any other questions or comments? All right. Well, with that, I think we can conclude the meeting. Thank you all for joining us today and have a good rest of your day.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Everyone, have a good day.